Welcome back to stage one, and now it's time to venture a little further afield. And for many crews, the lure of a French tout-terrain event is impossible to resist. Here to tell us more about these rallies inspirants, we have regular competitor with your host Diana, with Henry Webster, with Gary Bowers, and Brian Huggy Farmer. Diana.
That was like herding cats, really, wasn't it? But well done, chaps. All here, brilliant stuff. So the French Tout-Terrain series, it's a whole series of events that just inspire the greatest, I think, emotions, across the board. They are just extraordinary to see, to take part in, must be just mind-blowing. They really are incredible events. We've had French Tout-Terrain championship winners, of course, Stephanie and Rachel Simonow. Who can forget that win? That was extraordinary. Alex Cole as well. We've had wins out there big time. Of course, Pat Willis, Rob Leperti, when they won the magnificent, the mighty, the Deceimes. That was heartbeat breaking, just warming. It was brilliant. It was just extraordinary. So these events out there, as I say, they've become part of the British institution, which is why we're going to be covering them here today. Henry Webster, let me come to you first. We've got your car over in the far corner, of course, Muddy Moo. You've been out there competing. You know all about the French events. Run us through some of the most, the awesome ones, the ones that really ring a bell whenever you think of them.
Well, of course, the really iconic one is, as you've already mentioned, the Rallye des Cimes in the Pyrenees. What's so spectacular about it is just its location. It's a breathtaking part of the world, amazing mountains, fantastic scenery, and tracks that are narrower than the width of the car. You're racing along the side of these hillsides, flat out. It's just quite incredible. And of course, the Rallye des Cimes was also the inspiration for a lot of the events that we've now got over here. So it's been running for very nearly 70 years now. And it was the inspiration for the original Welsh Hill Rally, because somebody saw it on TV and thought, hang on a second, we've got terrain a little bit like that. We've got Wales. Why don't we do it back here too? So, and the Brits have been going out there ever since the late 60s, mid to late 60s. So we've got a history back at, especially the Cimes, going all the way that far back. And people have been going back and time and time again. And there's more often than not 10 or 11 people out at the Cimes in terms of competitive crews. And then they all bring families, they all bring supporters. So there's so much going on, and it's a fantastic home from home in some of the campsites there.
Well, we said because these events, I think it's fair to say they are pretty darn swift. They, as I say, not for the faint-hearted. We've seen, as I say, some great winners, championship winners. We saw Andy Sargent take the production class. When you're up against the crews that they have up there, which are super fast, there is no mercy. And as I say, it's breathtaking. When you're on those tracks, it's frightening, it's absolutely terrifying. What I want to know is, what does it feel like when you actually win your class? And for this, we're going to come to off-road legend, treasure from Professor Speed, Mr. Brian Huggy Farmer. You've been there. You know what it feels when you come over that line, and you know the chances are you've got it. You've won your class. What does it actually feel like?
Well, doing the Rally of the Skies, the Rallye des Cimes, which is one of the hardest stage rallies in Europe, which has been said by many a professional rally driver. You see the stage in front of you, you look at the competition, and then you see La Madeleine, which is a final stage. It's so steep, and it's just relentless. You're on and on and on, and you think you're never going to get to the top. And then when you go over that finish line, and the French, there's thousands of them, and they're all cheering and just wishing you the best. And there's on cordial, there's no animosity against the English at all. Everybody's friends, and it's just an overwhelming relief, because it's so difficult. The last time I did it, I went over with no clutch and no brakes, and the car in low box, it was squeaking, it was smelling, it was banging, and we managed to just get over the finish line, and we got to the end and we won the class, which again, against the French guys in their own backyard, you win the class and take that trophy and a little bit of prize money off them. It just makes it a lot more.
But it is extremely, when you're, especially we all talk about the Cimes, because I think that probably is literally the pinnacle of these events. You're looking down on eagles. I mean, you're
yeah, definitely.
So high, and you can't. I remember James Maloney Tennant saying a story about they'd come around and they could see Madeleine just coming into view. Down this side is absolutely nothing. Up there they have got to get to, and it's a narrow track. It's heart-stopping enough. When you do that, and all of a sudden your inside wheel lifts on a boulder, and you're now leaning over like this, still going around the corner, you're looking down there and there is nothing, absolutely nothing. And James was actually at the point where he was thinking, do I try and steer it or not? I mean, you cannot put it into words how terrifying some of these stages are. And you're doing it at pace. I mean, Gary Bowers, you've been out there any number of times now. What does it feel like? Do you not feel any fear? I mean, what goes on?
I've been not lucky enough to get to this seams just yet.
Come, gather round, come on.
Gary, I want to listen to you.
I'm sorry. Not been lucky enough to get to the seams just yet, but hopefully in the next couple of years we might get down to the Pyrenees and go and have a road trip. It's about 1,000 miles by all accounts.
Yeah.
So it's a long old trek to get down there, but we tend to do the 3 northern French rallies, Plains and Valleys, the 7 Valleys and Soissons. Jean de la Fontaine.
I mean, Plains and Valleys, that is so fast.
The weather is just unbelievable. The last 2 years of those, the Plains and Valleys and 7 Valleys, it's just a challenge that you only can watch when you watch the Safari Rally. Back in the 80s when the old school used to be doing it, it is literally just like that. So to be able to actually go and do those two rallies at the end of the year is brilliant fun, absolutely fantastic fun. And the rally coming up, which is Jean de la Fontaine in Soissons in northern France in about 8 weeks' time, that's a dry rally, fingers crossed. So we can all get his foot down in the real cars and, like Huggy says, we'll hopefully get up there in the sort of top 20 of the French Championship, knocking on the door.
We've got to be aiming at it. I mean, we saw Chris Bird a couple of years ago now, the first event he went out and he was absolutely flying. Took that first win of the season. Then COVID kicked in and it all went pear-shaped. But I think one of the things, when we see you, because we get quite a bit of footage back now, Henry, you'll know this feeling. It's so different to our events because there's open roads. You go through the towns, you go through cafes. There's people sat on the sidewalks. What's that? Talk us through that.
Absolutely unlike anything we've got in the UK in that respect. So I remember well doing Jean de la Fontaine in Soissons, and we'd had an accident on our first day. I'd run into the back of a Frenchman's Jeep and wrote it off just because it was so slippery and we got caught out and they got caught out. But so we had this vehicle that was absolutely hanging. It looked like nothing on earth. We patched it back together to do a few stages on the Sunday. And I just remember coming down an off-road section into a village, onto the tarmac, turning into the village, and then doing a 90 left right in the middle of this village, full opposite lock, all 4 tyres smoking, and just waving at the spectators standing on the side of the road. It was absolutely the best thing. You can't get that any other way. It's just a fantastic experience.
Yeah, so for you too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just going back to Rally des Seams again, like a couple of years ago, Carl Gudgeon managed to get within 50 feet of the finish line. 3 punctures, no traction. The French guys come out, put a tow rope on, and like it took a war team, pulled him over the finish line. It don't happen anywhere really. When you see it in the likes of rallying in the UK around the world, but never in the off-road, that they all come along and tow roped him over the finish line.
Gary, going out there as well, what persuaded you in the first place? What was it that drew you out there to go? Because it's not an easy thing to get out there. You've got to get sorted across the channel. What drew you?
I'd done a couple of the local NORC events in the Metro about 5 years ago. And I just found that the Metro, which may be up there pretty shortly, was far suited better for the French speed events, if you like, because Tout terrain means all terrains. So it's road, it's rally, it's gravel, it's grass, it's mud, but it's fast. Navigation, I like a little bit of knowing where I'm going and what corner's coming up when you're doing 100 mile an hour into it. So I like navigation, where the English events don't have that. Well, the English local club events don't have that. Not so sure about the hill rallies because I've never done one of those, but I like having a co-driver. I like building that rapport between the two of you in the car. You're with them all the way there. You're at 2 days reconnaissance on the quad bike, having a good crack, and then you're in the car for 2 days on the edge. So you've really got to gel with that co-driver. The co-driver I'd used for the last 4 years was Aston, who was going to be here today, but he's graduated up now and driving. So now I'm always looking to try and get somebody else to come and sit in the car with me, but obviously it's a commitment because it's a week off work, it's travelling to France, it's a big team effort is Tout terrain, which I like that road trip. I like getting in the camper and getting the whole package. Got a brilliant service crew, Carl Hubel, who built the car as well. So he comes with his wife, who does the catering. Carl does the spannering. We've got all the other guys round us as well, all the other Brits, which make about 20% of the entry when we get to France, under normal circumstances, of course. So it's really good, a really good team effort, real good camaraderie. And like Huggy says there, the French love us going over there. They put an interpreter on for us as well, so we can all get by with the language barriers. Just really good fun. It's a really good road trip. It really is worth spending the money and doing it.
Yeah, it's when you say road trip, I mean, there is like a host of the Brits go out and it just take over and look after through places like that. I mean, it's just, and it's not just the event, is it? It's so much about the after party, the après stuff, and the pre stuff as well.
I think it's always a shock to some of our drivers when they go out to France for the first time, because they think they're quite good here. You get to France and you find yourself in the midfield somewhere, and it's a real challenge. And I think the great thing is, they've developed their cars from a completely different base to us. So, as you can see from here, this show, we've come up from Land Rovers, basically. So more often than not, vehicles are Land Rover based. They started with Jeeps and with VW buggies. And so they've come a completely different route. So road saloons. And so they're into lightweight, independent suspension. And so some of their things look like space age compared to how our cars. We're catching up now. We're definitely right behind them, but certainly they were a leap above when we were running around in with old Yank steel and heavy Land Rover chassis. These guys were in ultra lightweight buggies, hyper fast.
Huggy, I always love to talk to you about an engine. So some of the cars. Tell us about some of the front runners. What is it that makes them so exceptional? What are some of the names that are the ones that just stop your breath for a while? You say, oh my God, he's on track now, brace yourselves. Who are the drivers out there to look out for?
Well, a lot of the guys out there have engines done by Vincent Foucault. He's a bit of a wizard. He likes to use the rotary engine, the Wankel engine, which is supposedly 1.4cc, but you bang turbos on it, you Bridgeport, you tip it, and they're just absolute screamers. They're rev to destruction. So it's then with Hydromedic as well, they've got 7-speed sequential, so they're revving up, they're pulling away. The cars are so light, they're really just powered by Gitans and Ricard most of the time. For those who've been to France will understand that. But again, as Henry said, these cars are designed and developed for the long straights, the flat, the tarmac sections, the gravel sections, where in the UK we've never really, bar the hill rallies, had that facility. We've had short courses, a lot of undulations, a lot of mud, a lot of slime, where their guys are just flat out. And I found personally in my car, I'm on the rev limiter. I'm wondering what's wrong with the car, wondering why it's not pulling. It will not go any faster. And we just can't go any faster. We're on the limit. And you sort of feel a bit like a professional rally driver, hey, watch this. And then it all turns a bit Pete Tong. But going over there, it's almost like a childhood ambition. If you always watch the rallying on TV and you watch all the racing drivers, you are actually a racing driver. You've got your fireproof suit, you've got your service crew,
Yes.
You've got everything to do with it. You've got a car that's all really specced up, super safe. Helmets, gloves, the whole lot. You feel like a rally driver. You look like a rally driver. You just don't really drive that one.
I love the story when you came over the brow once, and just as you sort of came over, the door flew open.
Yeah. What had happened there? We did an event in Wales in the Warrior and set off from Anglesey and drove straight to the Seams. So we arrived a day late, so we didn't get much chance to do the Requiem. I'd gone from a right-hand drive Warrior to a left-hand drive Polaris. First time I've ever raced it. We went over blind crest, maybe 60 mile an hour, and my navigator had called me a 90 left, but he didn't tell me it was down a 1 in 2. So we flew down at the bottom. I went into autopilot mode. I was left foot braking. I stood on my own toe, went to go down the gearbox and open the door because I'm on the wrong side of the car. Said, over here. So we went round this banking like a wall of death on two wheels. Oh, everyone's cheering. Well, look at him drive. Yeah, all right, yeah. Complete accident, but managed to pull it off. And I'd say went off there and got first in class. Beat them all, beat all the turbos, beat all the normally aspirated, beat all the French.
It's just Rolly was super calm as the door flies out and goes. Going somewhere.
It wasn't. I just turned the intercom off.
I love it. But so these events, as we said, I mean, they are really super fast. You do feel like it looks like rally. It is all-terrain. If somebody wanted to give it a go, which would be a good starter event? Which would be a good starter round where you wouldn't feel just a little bit like, oof, what the heck?
It's almost like a natural progression. What you do, you find somebody that you like, and then you grease them up a bit. I mean, like me and Gary, you know, he did that to me. And
Who's doing the greasing?
you go along to watch, first of all. You got a few familiar faces, you know, so you maybe go out for a meal and a drink, and then you offer to do service crew, and then once you know how the service side of it works, you understand more how the procedure of the rally works, because you are on the minute. You've got everything's on the minute, no matter what, on the minute. If you're early, you get a time penalty. If you're late, you get however much lateness you are. And right from signing on, right from putting the stickers on the car, you got a team together, you got your service crew. You can't do it without them. I mean, I'm just giving Nan a big shout here because he comes over and helps me fantastically. I couldn't do it without him. You then progress maybe to be a navigator. Now, the navigator is the hardest job. Without a doubt, it's much harder than driving because they've got to work out the road books. They've got to be there, again, on the minute. They've got to then sit on the back of you on a quad, which is just like a wild ride. It's like the wild mouse at Blackpool. And
they get the blame when it goes wrong.
Oh, well, it's not my fault, is it, Gary? Never my fault. And they go through, they do all the pace notes, so you go together, you pre-run all these events. Again, that's like a holiday. You have a quadding holiday, but there's a serious side to it. And then, while we're socialising and demonstrating our entente cordiale avec la boîte de vitesse pour un master, quatre vitesses, non cinq vitesses, avec la dent de chocolat, for those who can speak French. We're socialising, they're writing up these road books. So when we get on that start line and set off, we know how many yards or metres it is to the first corner, what sort of corner it is. If you get to a certain degree where you're doing positives and negatives, or you're decelerating into the corner, or you're accelerating into the corner, there's so much for them to look at while being jostled around, doing upwards of 100 miles an hour, left, right, up, down, not looking out, sat down, looking at a book, telling you and trusting you as a driver that you're going to take that corner, what they tell you, because they're not going to see that tree coming up that you're driving to. Rolly, if you were here, I told you. It was a 3 right, not a 4 right. But anyway, then they go, then they've got to make sure the time card that they're giving is correct. They've then got to cross-reference the times against what the organisers give you, because there's that many numbers going on, there's that much going on. They do make errors. Co-drivers make errors, organisers make errors, timekeepers make errors. As long as you all agree, then you pass your card in, and that card is gold. You can't lose that card. You've got to keep it with you all weekend till you do your final stage and you put it in time control. Put your car in park firm here, then the rally's over. But to get there is so much of an effort. Again, going back to service crew, there used to be the days where you didn't have central service, so it was exciting for service crew. They had the road book as well, so they had to do a bit of rally driving in service van. They'd get to the stage, then they'd have to find somewhere to park and push people out of the way and make it easy for us to get in, get the car done, get out, because we only have anything from 10 to 20 minutes service intervals. So if you've blown a front diff, you've got 20 minutes to get that out and another one in. So it's all hands to pump. Again, like Gary says, all the Brits will go together and they'll all help out, and all the teams just help each other. It's not like rallying where they won't look at you, they won't. If somebody can help you, they will help you, without a doubt. And it makes for a great deal and a great holiday. But again, Henry's mentioned about the mileage. I remember going to an event and getting halfway back and then having to return back to the hotel because somebody had left our passports in the hotel.
And this is where all the stories come out.
Adding another day to our trip.
What? I can imagine.
And some tolls. And some diesel money.
No grudge there at all. not that you noted that. But what you're saying, Huggy, is it takes a whole team. Now, Henry, Huggy's absolutely right. It does take the whole team, and it is a great trip. And as Gary said, it's a real road trip. We need a car. So where do you start? What about the French regs? Are they very different to ours? We've got Muddy Moo over there that people could come over and have a look at. What's the biggest difference?
So kind of sensible differences generally. So I think with the by far the easiest group in that respect is the production classes, because actually you can get away with not modifying quite as much as you do in the specials. So for a production car, as long as your fuel tank is in the right place and is an original tank, you don't need to buy a tank. You do have to have a FIA cage. As has been mentioned already, you've got to have all of the fireproof gear. So the main differences are in the safety. You've got to have the fireproof balaclava, you've got to have the underwear, you've got to have the socks, you've got to have the boots, you've got to have the whole lot. But there's sort of little detail changes here and there. If you've got a special, then you've got to have full FIA fuel tanks and all of that gear. It's relatively easy, and they're very, very helpful, I've found, in teaching you what is needed and helping you work through the problem. So Sébastien Varon, who was the main scrutineer in France, I think he still is, I don't know whether he's, speaks great English, is so helpful. You can have a conversation with him on email, and he will put you right with anything that's different to the UK. So there are a few detailed differences. Some of those things cost a bit of money, but generally they're good safety things anyway, and so you end up with a safer car as a result.
As you say, we can have a look at Muddy Moo over there and all geared up, ready to go. Now, the one person we have to mention whenever you're talking about French events, it is the motormouth himself, the man of all the events over the decades, the fastest speaker I have ever heard in my life. And you'll absolutely adore him. Top world commentator ever. Gary, does he not just make the events for you? It really changes it, doesn't it?
He's very, 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 very quick speaking Frenchman who doesn't speak much English, by the way. He always asks who's the sponsor, and I just say my name, and he just laughs like a laughing policeman, and I don't even know what to say to the guy. But yeah, going back to what you were just saying then about getting into the sport, I came into the sport via saloon car racing. You mentioned saloon car. I'd raced BMWs in the Northern Sports and Saloon Car Championship. The opportunity came up to acquire the Metro, which is a boyhood dream. Obviously, being a boy of the 80s and seeing Malcolm Wilson in a 6R4 in Kielder Forest and Network Q and one thing another. So to actually get a car that represented that era was special. But like Huggy said earlier, some of these French vehicles now are so special in their own right. There's 3 or 4 main French vehicle builders, as there are in the UK. I think we've got a few here today as well. I think Guy's here from GSR and Robin from Clarkson, and who else we got?
Garrett, you.
Me.
Simon Adams ground tracks with a brand new V8
Radical cars, yeah. So there's plenty of vehicle builders in the UK who can adapt a vehicle to be raced in the UK as well as in France, or the opposite way around. Some of the French builders can adapt a car to race in England as well, and we've demonstrated that because there's a few Rivets and Phuket vehicles in the UK that race in some of the series in the 4x4 series in the Northern Off-Road and the Silver Club called, the XCC, and they're all really competitive cars. They just need a lot of looking after, TLC, and getting across that finishing line, because it's not just it's an endurance event in France. It's not just a sprint, it's an endurance event, as I've come to learn. You've got to finish to win, and we're very lucky that in the back end at Plains and Valleys last year we managed to get 11th overall in the T1A class, which is knocking on the top 10, which is could only dream of, because to get into the top 20 is really special, but to be setting top 10 times in the last couple of stages builds your confidence. You get new co-driver as well, so it took a little bit of getting used to Mark. I don't know if Mark's here, but he did a really good job, gelled with him really well, and that's what the Tout terrain's all about. It's about finishing the event with your team, as we've already said, and getting to the finishing line.